The 2020 California wildfire season, part of the 2020 Western United States wildfire season, was a record-setting year of wildfires in California. By the end of the year, 9,639 fires had burned 4,397,809 acres in damages, including over $10 billion in property damage and $2.079 billion in fire suppression costs. The intensity of the fire season has been attributed in part to over a century of poor forest management as well as increased warming due to climate change. On August 18, Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency, and on August 19, 2020, reported that the state was battling 367 known fires, many sparked by intense thunderstorms on August 16 to 17 caused by moisture from the remnants of Tropical Storm Fausto. Response and evacuations were complicated by a historic heatwave and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. On August 22, President Trump issued a major disaster declaration, which provides individual assistance and/or public assistance. In early September 2020, a combination of a record-breaking heat wave and strong katabatic winds caused explosive fire growth. The August complex became California's largest recorded wildfire. The creek fire expanded in the Big Creek drainage area, temporarily trapping hundreds of campers near the Mammoth Pool Reservoir. The North complex explosively grew in size as the winds fanned it westward, threatening the city of Oroville, triggering mass evacuations, and causing 16 fatalities. Governor Newsom's request for a federal disaster declaration for 6 major wildfires was approved on October 17 after having been rejected the previous day. On November 10, 2020, the National Interagency Coordination Center reported that there were around 3,400 firefighters, plus personnel fighting the wildfires in the United States. Early in the year, there was a concern for the 2020 fire season to potentially be prolonged and especially grave due to the unusually dry months of January and February, one of the driest such periods of any calendar year on record. On March 22, a state of emergency was declared by California Governor Gavin Newsom due to a mass die-off of trees throughout the state, potentially increasing the risk of wildfires. However, throughout March and April, rain began to consistently fall in the state, which alleviated the drought conditions. Despite this, Northern California was still expected to have severe wildfire conditions due to the moderate or severe drought conditions in the area, whereas Central and Southern California were expected to have serious fire conditions later in the year due to the late wet season and precipitation. On June 18, climate scientist Daniel Swain predicted the 2020 Arizona wildfire season was a sign of what was to come in California, due to similar drought and weather conditions between Arizona and Northern California. The year 2020 was the largest wildfire year recorded in California history, according to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. From a historical perspective, the average annual acres burned prior to 1850 were probably significantly larger than years since reliable fire records began. Scott Stevens, a professor of fire science at UC Berkeley, estimated that prior to 1850, about 4,500,000 acres burned yearly, in fires that lasted for months. Activity peaked roughly every 30 years, with up to 11,800,000 acres burning during peak years. The indigenous peoples of California historically set controlled burns and allowed natural fires to run their course. The peak of the wildfire season usually occurs between July and November when hot, dry winds are most frequent. The wildfire season typically does not end until the first significant rainstorm of autumn arrives, which is usually around October in Northern California and early November in Southern California. As wildfire becomes more frequent, the wildland-urban interface has increasingly become more dangerous when it comes to property damage and risk to life. Prior to development, California fires regularly burned significantly more acreage than has been seen in recent history. Wildfires have been aggressively suppressed in recent years, resulting in a buildup of fuel, increasing the risk of large uncontrollable fires. There is broad scientific consensus that there should be more controlled burning of forest in California in order to reduce fire risk. A 2020 ProPublica investigation blames the culture of Cal Fire, greed on the part of fire suppression contractors, and risk aversion on the part of the U.S. Forest Service from preventing appropriate controlled burns from taking place. A sharp increase in the population and development of fire-prone areas has also contributed to the increase in flammable tinder. Leading climate scientists argue that climate change increases the temperature of wildfires in California, the risk for drought, and potentially also the frequency of such events. For example, David Romps, director of the Berkeley Atmospheric